Welcome to Generation Digital Workforce, the podcast that's here to explore the role of robotic process automation and other digital technologies. Whether you're just getting started or you're looking for advanced strategies and tactics, if you're curious about where human and digital workers are coming together to transform the future of work, then this podcast is for you. All right, let's get into the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome this week to Generation Digital Workforce. I'm glad you joined. This is Zena coming at you from Austin, Texas. I have here with me this week Sanjiva from 24/7 AI, as well as Satish with Blue Prism. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, Zena. This is Sanjiva. How are you doing?
I'm doing well today. How are you doing?
Doing very well. Thank you.
Good. Hey, Satish.
Good afternoon, Zena. How are you?
Oh, well, I am doing very well today. It is a beautiful day in Austin. How about where you are?
It's gorgeous. I mean, it always is in San Jose, isn't it? People give me a hard time about the weather here because we can't complain.
Well, if you did, nobody would listen, right?
That's right. That's right.
Great.
I'm in Bay Area as well with Satish. So share the sort of joy that we have about the weather here.
Very good. Well, I'm glad that you gentlemen are in such a nice place during the time of, kind of stay-at-home measures that we are in right now. I'm glad that we are all able to enjoy the homes in which we may be stuck for a while. So welcome to the program. Sanjiva, tell us a little bit about 24/7 AI and yourself and what you guys do.
Sure. So first of all, my name is Sanjiva Singh. I've been at 24/7.ai for 4 years now. I run business development globally for 24/7 and driving partnerships with companies like Blue Prism, which can be a win-win for all three constituents in the ecosystem. When you think about it, it's us as 24/7, Blue Prism as the technology partner, and our customers. And I also have direct sales responsibility for large accounts for 24/7.ai. And just from my background, I have been in technology, IT consulting, contact center business for a lot of years. I forgot counting those. And before 24/7.ai, I was part of a founding team that started a contact center and grew that from 0 to 5,000 tech support agents across the globe. So that's my background. As far as 24/7.ai is concerned, in fact, our simple tagline is that we make it easy for consumers to connect with the brands and get things done. Now, that means a lot. It means ability for our technology, our AI systems to enable self-service for consumers so they can get the solutions fast. But also means having other assist technologies in the back end that can make agents smart as well. So the whole combination of customer engagement systems that provide self-service to the customers and also provide assistance to the agents in the back end to provide a seamless omni-channel experience to the customers that call to the brands that use our systems itself. And in addition, we also have, in fact, a pretty large contact center operations itself. So we do use our systems and our agents as a holistic sort of solution for some of the enterprises that are willing to look at the entire system from us ourselves. We've been in the business for over 20 years. It's a privately held company headquartered here in San Jose, California, funded by Sequoia as our venture capital company partner. And the company is primarily focused on Fortune 500 clients globally or brands globally.
Wonderful. That was a great introduction to both yourself and the business. Contact centers, I think, are something that affect every single consumer in the world. And so I think this episode is going to be very interesting to all of our listeners. Satish, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role here at Blue Prism?
Absolutely, Zena. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Satish Shenoy. I'm the Director of Technology Alliances at Blue Prism for the Americas. I've been at Blue Prism for just over a year. Before Blue Prism, I spent a lot of time in the contact center space at companies as large as Avaya, which is a pretty large contact center vendor, as well as a couple of exciting early stage and late stage startups before I arrived at Blue Prism. The year that I've spent at Blue Prism has been very exciting, more so because of my work and the partnership work we do in the Technology Alliances team with companies like 24/7 AI, among others, right? So the fact that tended automation is transforming or helping transform contact centers is truly an exciting opportunity. So that's what I would say first. Now, I'm happy to also talk about 24/7 AI, the partnership itself, Zena, if that makes sense a little later.
Sounds good. Yeah, before we go there, since you guys both have such good backgrounds in contact center, why don't we start our discussion there and talk a little bit about what's driving disruption inside of customer service and contact centers today, and why you see, needs for products like yourselves or Blue Prism. Sanjiva?
Yeah, sure. In fact, I'll take a first stab at it, and maybe then Satish can add from his experience as well. So if you think about contact centers, and contact centers are primarily a cost center, right? So that's been facing disruption from the cost optimization perspective for a very long time. And over this period, they've gone through, I would say, a few defining phases where it's made like large differences in step function rather than linear function. First wave was outsourcing itself of contact centers from in-house contact centers to outsourcers. Second wave was offshoring that happened way back in 90s and 2000 when the entire telecom revolution happened. And the third phase was when the World Wide Web or internet happened. And this wave that was brought by the internet, which is loosely termed digital transformation, has been sort of the theme ever since then overall. And this is also going through now certain phases. In the first phase of digital transformation, essentially what happened was companies built websites with all the information, FAQs, self-service applications, like where's my order, what's the return policy, things like that. And they launched digital support through email, and little later came chat as a sort of engagement channel as well. So digital channel overall has been increasing its share of the total contacts, and that's obviously transforming the entire contact center industry and contact center sort of agents in the back end along with that. But what has happened interestingly in the last few years, which I would call the second phase of digital transformation, is very interesting because there's a fundamental change in the market that's driving this sort of phase of disruption. And it's resulting from, I would say, 2 or 3 trends that are converging to drive that change. The first one of that is a sort of a customer expectation and behavior that's right now in the market is distinctly different. And it's obviously been honed over the period, but it's distinctly different from what it was in the past. Customers are now digital, they're mobile, and because of that, they're sort of impatient and demanding, and they have very sort of less time to deal with anything that's human or agent related. They want seamless service, they want fast service, and they prefer self-service. So that's a distinct change in customer expectation behavior that they preferably don't want to talk to customer service agents if they can help it. And this behavior is also, in fact, being shaped by the experience that they're getting from companies like Uber, Amazon, Netflix's, Airbnb's of the world, where whenever they have any issue with the brand, they can get these things fixed without having to talk to a customer service agent itself. So that's a very fundamental trend that we are seeing in the market. And customers, when they experience that, they're wanting to experience and get the same digital simplest experience from like regular brands like Marriott, Wells Fargo, United, Verizon of the world itself. So that's a very fundamental sort of one trend that we're seeing in the market. Second thing that has happened in the last few years is that now to drive that sort of a trend, you need to have technology that's available to sort of address that. And the technology that's available now to drive self-service through the application of AI is far, far advanced than what it was in the past. So this real-time application of AI in customer service is becoming a very big factor in driving this change in self-service itself. And this application of AI capability to improve agents' efficiency also has been equally important at the back end. And that's the second piece where we are seeing a converging trend. And the third thing is, which is basically a sort of combination of the two, is the companies or brands' willingness to wake up to this change and adapt, since obviously it's much cheaper to serve customers through the self-service automation than live customer service agents. And secondly, across all industries, I mean, if you think about it, products and services being commoditized to such an extent that customer experience is becoming actually the only way to really differentiate your brand. So the focus on that has become increasingly sort of important. And now that the digital transformation is going through this phase, and it has, the new challenge that's come in, and actually that has phenomenally accelerated the whole process of transformation, is what has happened to the COVID. I think we can talk about that more in the later part of it, but that's actually accelerated this transformation by at least few years. It's somewhat like, and one of our retail clients said that, especially in e-commerce, that we used to see Black Fridays once in a year. We are seeing Black Fridays every week now because of COVID. And the similar kind of sort of trends are happening in the digital transformation, the contact center business as well, that we can get to in the later part of conversation. I'll let Satish add to it from his side as to how he's looking at the transformation that's going through the customer service contact center industry.
Yeah, so thank you, Sanjiva. I would add, from a, because you provided a kind of overview and what the trends are, I'll bring the how 24/7 AI and Blue Prism fit into addressing those trends. Now, we all know that seamless omni-channel experiences are what companies strive for. And one way to do that is to reduce friction for these customers by providing them the tools, maybe the self-service tools, to help those customers buy a product or a service or get support for a issue they need resolved. The balance that the companies need to strive for is to provide this kind of self-service at a lower cost, while also providing some level of personalization to that client that's coming in. Now, what companies like 24/7 AI have been able to do is to provide virtual agents, AI-powered virtual agents, or IVA for short. But then where Blue Prism really helps is to really contain that conversation that the virtual agent is having with that customer even more, while providing the personalization these customers need. So hopefully that helps. Blue Prism, along with 24/7 AI, is enabling these highly personalized end-to-end customer experience that will help these companies really take that customer experience to the next level, using the combination of RPA and AI-based chatbots. So hopefully that helps Zina in kind of providing that next layer of detail, that our partnership enables, if you will.
Yes, it does indeed. And both of you are singing music to my ears with all this talk about customer experience. This is my passion. I've been, in the world of customer experience before it was such a thing. And joining Blue Prism 28 months ago as the Vice President of Global Customer Experience and being able to help shape that here has been an awesome opportunity. And I'm thinking of all the ways that, as you called it, IVAs can really benefit a business. Tell us a little bit about the intelligent virtual agent. Is that what IVA stood for? Did I get that right?
Yeah, in fact, you got it right. At the way we call it IVA, AIVA, which is AI-driven virtual agent. So
AI-driven virtual agent. Tell us a little bit about, what that is, and could I have engaged with one at one point in the past? And if I did I know it?
Yeah, I'm sure. In fact, when we talk about the trend of self-service, I think we are talking about these, and these are called different things by different constituents. Some call them bots or chatbots or virtual agents or intelligent virtual agents. We call them IVA. It's like it's different avatars of the same thing. But essentially, it's a conversational AI platform that enables a human being like you and me as consumers to interact with the brands and get answers to their questions. And these systems, these conversational AI platforms are able to, first of all, interact with you. So they become the interaction channel between a consumer and a brand. And they are able to understand and interpret what you're saying and provide you the answers or the resolution to your problem. So essentially, in a way, when you have any issue with, say, your telco and you're calling them through whatever it is, your phone is not working or your bill is overdue, and in typical situation, you will get transferred to an agent. An agent will understand what your issue is and resolve that for you. What we are trying to do through this IVA or virtual agent is to, in fact, essentially take care of that entire process or that interaction in a self-service mode so that you can get the resolution faster and you don't have to sort of wait online to talk to an agent. It's available 24/7 and gets things done for you in moments rather than basically minutes.
So I imagine there's applicability for both internal use cases, if you will, as well as external, obviously, in contact and call centers. Do you see some of your customers using this for employee service?
Absolutely. In fact, we see it for both. And it's a similar sort of situation where internal employees also have requirements. It could be like an HR query that an employee may have about his vacation, his PTOs, his pay, and those can get resolved through these intelligent virtual agents itself. And obviously, I talked about the use cases for external customers. I think that the important thing here is to think about how 24/7 as this conversational AI platform and BP Blue Prism as and the digital worker platform, so to speak, comes together to solve this end-to-end story for the consumer. I think that probably is a good way to sort of think about how these two sort of companies come together and solve that end-to-end. And probably that's best way explained by an example if you can provide that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So if you think about it, let's take an example whereby, say, you are a telco consumer and you call, AT&T, Verizon, whatever that is, or T-Mobile for that matter, and you want to say activate a new line or add a new phone, right? So you typically, the experience that you'll get is that you call the 1-800 number, or you go on digital or whichever way it is, you get connected to an agent, which is a live agent, and he or she will greet you, get your name, get your details, interact with you, understand what you're looking for, say, okay, hey, I'm looking to activate a new line, and then respond saying that, okay, let me sort of get back to you. Now, what that agent does in the back end, but because for your phone to be activated, there are several steps that he has to take at the back end, right? He'll open the CRM, look at all the information about you, add you as a customer if you're not already present, search for the available phone numbers that they have, and then set you up for all the details that they need to in the internal systems to make sure that you become their customers. And then after that, they'll interact with you and give you back your data plan on all that you agreed for and confirm that, and you get activated, right? So now think about this process that happened in real world is that you talk to an agent did all of that work in the back end, and this process took, whatever, I would say 15 minutes, 20 minutes for this to get done. Agent was very nice, he did all that for you, great. Now think about how we come in that equation, which we right now is not. This is just the way the process in real world works without any automation. So what the telco brand would do is say that, what, my agent is spending on this call, which was lasted for 15, 20 minutes, almost 7-8 minutes on doing all this back-end processes. He's going and filling up all the CRM, he's going and then waiting for that. He gets us some ticket, then he goes and updates my billing systems and accounts and looks at some other system to find what phone numbers are available. All of that essentially manual processes that he has to undergo for each activation. What this client would do in that case is that they'll go to Blue Prism and say, what, I have all these processes that can be easily automated using your platform. So they'll deploy BP, and BP will create, or someone using the BP platform will create these bots or digital workers that will do all of these steps that agent is now doing. So what happens now is that when you call in for activation, that agent actually is now spending time on interacting with you, providing you a great customer experience, and essentially sort of in some ways having the digital worker do that work for him in the back end or her in the back end. It drastically reduces the overall time that it takes for that call to happen, number one. Number two is it drastically improves the customer experience for you because you don't have to wait for 15, 20 minutes for that activation to happen, right? So this is how, and then the cost of that obviously service goes down quite dramatically because the 20 minutes of agent time that got spent on that particular interaction now is down to 12 minutes. And that 8 minutes can be used for some other customer, right? So your cost went down, your customer experience improved. So everyone is happy in the ecosystem. And this is how BP came in and sort of solved that problem in the back end. Now, what we do, now think about the same situation. The telco brand says, yeah, I achieved this thing, but still I have 100 agents. Now I've got a lot of demand. Customers come in and they have to wait online for like 2 minutes before they can talk to my agent. What can I do to automate the front end part of it? And that's when someone like 24/7 will come in and say, you know what? We will use our conversational AI platform and in fact build an artificially intelligent virtual agent, IVA bot, that can actually automate the front end experience for that customer itself. So all of the work that agent was doing in sort of interacting with the customer is now actually being done by this bot that can sort of simulate that agent experience for the customer. So when we sort of reach out to your telco to activate a line, this bot will greet you, personalize that for you, interact with you, understand your intent, and based on that, and then will call in that digital worker in the back end to sort of get you your line added, you activate your line itself. So now what we've done in this process is that now after our platform also is deployed in this, we've automated the entire complex process whereby 24/7 automated the front-end customer experience and conversational AI part of it. And BP has automated, Blue Prism has automated the back-end digital process that actually was being done in a sort of by a human agent in a regular way. So this is essentially, in some fashion, if you can think about this entire process got replaced by fully automated system. Now that 12-minute sort of interaction became 10-minute interaction. And more than that, from the customer experience perspective, that bot, or that front-end bot is available 24/7. It never sort of misses its ability to understand because it is a system by itself. And actually, it's a system that learns because for every interaction it doesn't understand that. Next time, the machine learning part of AI kicks in and improves that system itself. So this, in a way, sort of, by an example, talks about what it means in the ecosystem for 24/7 BP and why this partnership between Blue Prism 24/7 is so powerful for automating the end-to-end experience for a customer. Now, this can be a telco customer calling a telco from external perspective, or it could be an employee calling that telco employee calling their internal HR or IT help desk to get some of the issues resolved as well.
I mean, in other words, Sanjiva, I think of this, what you described now, as completely reimagining customer service, right? And really making it seamless, frictionless, while really delivering benefits both to the business as well as the customer, right? Because the customer sees a much smoother, much more effective way to interact with that business. The business sees lower costs end to end in providing that service. Would you say that?
Absolutely. And I think this is where it's like I think it's a virtuous sort of cycle in the sense that everybody is a winner in this thing. Normally what happens when you cut costs in some part of it, you automate some of the processes. Oftentimes customer experience is, it comes at the cost of that. And in this case, actually, it improves the customer experience because customers want to get self-served anyways. So as I talked about in my previous, when I was talking about the trends that's happening in the digital transformation, today's customers want self-service. They don't want to talk to a person. If the bot can take care of that issue, they'd rather deal with that. Number one. Number two is that's much more fast for him. And number three, it's always available. And not only always available in your sort of in the channel that brands decide to implement, but it's actually available in the channel of your choice, because it becomes much easier for that system to be available on your website, on your mobile app, in your phone IVR, or in fact, you can have Alexa skills to do the same thing as well. So wherever customer is, he or she can just decide in their moment of choice and the moment of and the choice of their device or their channel to interact with the brands and get this done at just the snap of a finger. So absolutely, it's actually win-win for all constituents.
Absolutely. The one thing I was thinking of, Zina, was your earlier question about have you interacted with IVA somewhere in your interactions with some of the biggest businesses? Sanjiva, I was thinking of one of the largest US airlines. I'm sure Zina has traveled on that airline. I'm not sure if we can talk about the name of the airline itself, but
we can actually. I'm happy to, and Zina, this in fact is a great example. I mean, I'm sure you've been flown by United and call United IVR at some point of time to either sort of
Absolutely. I'm actually, believe it or not, missing getting on a plane right now. My suitcase is lonely up there in the closet.
And so I don't know if you've experienced that. What happens is when you call in, it's able to first of all recognize you based on your phone number who you are. If you're their mileage plus number, it'll tell you, hey, I see that you're calling from XYZ number. Is it Zina? And once you confirm it is, then it's in fact sort of predicts. It says that I see that you have a flight coming the next 24 hours. Is this call about that? Right? And if it is, then it'll either try to sort of reschedule or do something on its own, or for some reason it's a complicated sort of itinerary that it cannot handle. What it'll do is say that, okay, you know what, let me transfer that to an agent that can take care of your issue. And when it's transferred, that agent, he or she, when he comes on the call with you, he or she doesn't start with how can I help you, but says that I see that you have this problem. Let me try to sort this out for you. So that's the sort of experience of a bot in the front end that personalizes that sort of interaction for you, right? Because it greets you it knows who you are, greets you by your name, and also in fact makes an intelligent attempt to understand what your call is all about, and if it gets that right, tries to either sort of give you self-service, or in fact give it back to a human agent with all the context and information that it passes on, so that he or she can start that conversation from there on. So, and that's just for you, that's our platform.
It's a beautiful experience. It's a well thought out, consistent, and deliberate journey that I, as the customer, am on. And, that is exactly the way to make your customer experience a competitive differentiator, which we talked about earlier in the program.
Yes. So that's an example of an IVA platform being deployed by.
I love it. And yes, I have in fact engaged with one of your IVAs. So I want to debunk, or I guess that's not the right word. I want to demystify some of these 3-letter acronyms and things that we hear. You used a great term, conversational platform. A lot of times we hear, artificial intelligence, natural language processing, optical character recognition, machine learning, all these things are sort of thrown around. Can you put those in context of the conversational platform, the intelligent automation platform, and what do all those 3-letter acronyms, mean, and where do they all come into being in the solution?
Yeah, sure. In fact, that's a good question, because that comes up a lot, right? And these acronyms mean different things to different people. So in fact, to make it a little bit simple, what I'll do is I'll correlate that to the example that we talked about of activation account for that telco customer, right? So that we can not only understand what the theories, but how it relates to the actual example itself. So just from the definition perspective, now AI is, it's a all-encompassing term that means everything to do with smart machines, right? It relates to how a machine can do the task that only humans can do. And that type of task that can take care, obviously, is getting increasingly complex with advancement in AI itself. So that's basically the entire AI part of it. Now, when you talk about NLP, natural language processing, it's essentially a subset of AI. And NLP essentially deals with primarily enabling the dialogue between computers and humans. And so natural language processing means that when consumers or users interact with an AI system, it sort of facilitates that by understanding and interpreting what humans are saying to the machine. And then, in fact, in similar way, it actually interprets and now spits out what now the computer is saying back to the human being. So essentially, it's if you think about natural language processing, it's a combination of natural language understanding, which is the front end part of it. That's like how the system understands what you're trying to communicate in the system. And the back end is essentially back to, which kids call natural language generation, NLG, or text to speech in a voice platform, which essentially converts whatever machine's output is back to the human being itself. So that's the NLP piece, which is a subset of what you call as an AI overall platform. So going back to that example, and essentially this combination of the two is what is called a conversational AI platform, because it's an AI platform that enables a human-like conversation between user and the system. So that's how I'll define that. So when we talk about the chatbot in the front end in the telco example, the conversational AI platform has that NLP component, which essentially sort of understands what consumer was asking for, that was activating a line. Then it passes that back to the system in the back end. And in fact, system in the back end will do all the processing, and I'll leave the Blue Prism part aside for the moment. But then whatever is the output of that has to go back to the customer, it converts it back in the format that customers can now understand. For example, if customer went through a digital journey, then it just provide that in the text format back in that bot chat window to the consumer. But if you had called on the line, it obviously the backend system will take the output, and then the natural language generation or text to speech will convert that into the speech, and in fact read it out to you, so that on the IVR you can listen back to whatever the result of that conversation was. So that's the front end piece of it. Now on the back end, all the digital worker that's get deployed, it has different technologies that it uses, and OCR is one part of it. And I'll let, in fact, probably Satish is better equipped to handle that part. So let him sort of describe the technologies that gets used on the Blue Prism side for all the backend work that gets done in this activation example that I gave you.
Yeah, no, happy to provide a little bit of insight there. I mean, specifically on OCR, stands for optical character recognition, Zina, as you probably know. We at Blue Prism have built a very rich partner ecosystem, of which 24/7 AI is a premier partner. But we do have some of these capabilities, AI-related capabilities, if you will, including NLP, OCR, and machine learning and other capabilities through our partners. And again, 24/7 AI is a premier partner in that league, if you will. So once you take the activation example that Sanjiva talked about, once that agent that is handling, in this case, could be a virtual agent or a human agent, needs to interact with systems in the back end, right? Some of that work can be done by a digital worker, and usually more and more these days is done by a digital worker. Think of the digital worker as the arms and legs for getting that work done, going to different systems. It could be mainframe systems. It could be any kind of a legacy system. It could even be some of the systems that have APIs. We can interact with any kinds, we have different ways to interact with systems, including the user interface itself, or the UI, or APIs, or a human in the loop type of interaction. So Blue Prism is really performing some of that back-end interactions and bringing the information or data that's needed by that agent. Again, it could be a human agent or a virtual agent from 24/7 AI, and then providing that information so that they can complete that task. In this case, could be an activation. Does that help Zina and Sanjiva?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yes, it finishes painting the picture of a digital worker quite well. I love the way you characterize hands and legs or the body of. I've heard some of my other guests say that as well. And Sanjiva, all of the things that you're talking about are really those additional skills, the conversation, being able to bring that human element to that processing ability, and really marrying and being able to transform an industry, the contact center industry, that where we started our conversation. I know we've talked a lot about, it improves customer experience, and obviously we've talked about, it reduces costs. But for our audience out there that's thinking, I'm in the contact center, will this work for me? What key metrics or what key things could be going on in their business that would trigger to them, this is a solution they need? And how much can those metrics that they track the performance of their business on really be impacted?
No, I think that's a great question, because whatever you can't really measure, then you can't really improve on, right? So the metrics are critical to this. Obviously, at a very fundamental level, you can imagine that it obviously improves experience for the customer, the CX piece of it. It cuts down the cost. But let me in fact break it down into the metrics that get measured and tracked for different constituents in this ecosystem, right? So one is the customer itself, and how does that get measured? Because that's the critical thing for all of this for brands itself. So from the customer perspective, what the metrics is the customer effort score. It's actually something that's getting tremendous traction in the market now. It is a metric that wasn't that popular sort of maybe 10 years back, but last few years it's been forefront because people are realizing that's very important. So how much effort did customers sort of do and make in actually getting their issues resolved? Even if the issues got resolved in the first attempt, if the effort was high, that's not really a great experience. You want things to be seamless, right? Like in Uber, then when you interact with that, it's like it gets done and you don't even feel the effort that you made in that. So that's one important metrics from the customer perspective. Obviously, second is the customer satisfaction. It's customers expressing in their own way how satisfied they were with that interaction. And the third thing, which gets talked about a lot, is NPS, Net Promoter Score. So I would say customer effort score, CSAT, customer satisfaction score, and Net Promoter Score are three things that are critical from customer perspective, right? CX perspective, that gets measured. Second constituent in the system would be the company itself, right? Or the brand that deploys it. And for brands, obviously the cost, right? And cost gets translated in overall what we have a sort of a term called cost per resolved conversation. So when a customer talks to you and gets his issues resolved, whether it gets resolved in the first attempt or 2 calls or whatever it is, what was the overall cost of that? And by deploying this system, how much was I able to drive that cost down? And it essentially means the cost of everything, not just that agent's time on that, but the systems, the IT cost, the overheads and all of that. So companies and sophisticated companies are tracking that pretty well. So cost per resolved conversation and reducing that is a very important metrics. And then the other things that get measured is the level of service itself. For example, what was the first call resolution? And that essentially is that when customers call in, how many of those out of 100 got resolved in the first time itself? That's an important metric because that improves the customer satisfaction. And also it reduces the cost overall. So that is important metrics. Then average speed of answer is another metric that gets measured quite a bit in the customer care industry, which is essentially how much time does it take for you to respond back. And this is where, in fact, a bot comes tremendously handy. Think about it. If your call centers are jammed, what happened in times of COVID actually is that you had to wait online for hours and hours, right, to get any response back because agents are not available. In that case, average speed to answer, which typically gets measured in 30 seconds to 2 minutes range, went up to 4 hours. If you had an automated system available, it will be moments, seconds. It's scalable to infinite in that fashion as long as you have it on a right system with the right cloud capability. So that is another metric that gets measured. Then containment rate is an extremely important sort of metric that gets measured by the brands, which essentially means out of 100 customers that called in, if I had a self-service system deployed, how many of those customers were handled all in the automated system itself? They did not have to talk to an agent at all, right? So if out of 100, 30 were like handled that way, then 30% becomes the containment rate. And essentially, the importance of this is from twofold. One is that obviously, if you can get that resolution in the self-service system itself, it improves the CX and NPS and CSAT and all of that good things. But you can think about it that if that system did not touch the human beings, agents at all, the cost of that gets dramatically reduced as well, right? So that is a very important metrics from a company perspective. And third constituent of it, which actually a lot of people forget, but coming from contact center industry, we are very focused on that, is also what does it do for the agents themselves, right? Because agents also are very important. The human in the loop that's there is also a very important component of this ecosystem. And what it does for them, if you basically deploy intelligent conversational AI platform in the back end and digital worker on the front end and digital worker in the back end, it essentially, in fact, takes all the mundane tasks away from the agent. He can focus on more complex and interesting interactions rather than doing this activation day in and day out, which basically has nothing that he has to sort of apply his mind to. So what it does for him is, number one, actually it makes the jobs content better for him. We've seen better job satisfaction because of automation across the board. And it also means actually that it's a lower HT, so he can focus more on providing better customer experience to the customers that he's interacting with, rather than just trying to manage his time. So the pressure that he has to manage the time gets a little bit relaxed, so he can also be more relaxed about the job. So we've seen, in fact, overall agent satisfaction going up when we built good automation system in the front end for customers to interact with, as well as good back-end digital workers that can help the customers as well. I know a long answer to a lot of this thing, but these are the metrics that from these three constituents that are typically measured and get impacted by a system like what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I love it. I love the level of detail. This gives real, guidance and good actionable insights and takeaways for our listeners. So I really love it. And you cannot overlook that agent, that employee. We always see a direct correlation in employee satisfaction, employee net promoter score, as they may call it, and that customer satisfaction, what your customer net promoter score is as well. Those things are very highly correlated.
You're absolutely right. There's a very strong correlation between the two.
Absolutely. So I think we've been through a lot of transformation. You shared a lot of trends in the beginning around why we see companies moving in this direction. Customers' expectations for self-service moving us, the technology being so much more advanced and AI intelligent, as well as companies becoming more and more aware of customer experience as a competitive differentiator. If you are here today and all those things have already come at you as they have over the last, let's say, 24 months, I'm sure that you're already trying to deal with a lot of disruption, but it's not likely to stop. So if you look forward to the next 12 or 24 months, what should our listeners be looking out for that they might not even know is around the corner?
Actually, that's a great question again, and I'll sort of take an attempt at that, and I'll let Satish add to it. I'm sure he brings a different perspective than mine on this as well. So we talked about all the trends that's going on right now, and they will continue to be sort of advancing as AI systems get better and better, as I said, and all of that. And also brands start deploying more and more. It's a network effect, right? As you use more, you sort of start adopting it more. I mean, just to give you an example, I called one of the some service companies, I forgot, and I was trying to schedule something, and all of it I was able to do just through self-service on an application that they sort of pushed me on digital form in the call itself. And once I did that, in fact, not only I started doing that forever from there onwards because it's much more convenient, but actually I told a few friends that, hey, this is the way to do it, right? So this network effect is going to, in fact, further enhance that. But beyond that, there are two or three things that I think, and this is partly our view of the world as to how is going to change. Because if we think about the consumer trend today, what's happening, it's become today's generation what we call is a text generation, right? So people are essentially using their phones for essentially a texting. I mean, it's a digital communication. It's not a voice communication device. I think they should term it different than calling it a phone or smartphone also. So if that's where the world is going in the contact center world, even today, despite the fact that digital transformation has been happening since the time of the World Wide Web, which is 20 years in coming, there's still, I would say, only 20% of conversations that happen with contact centers happen digitally. The rest of it is still voice. And I see that changing dramatically going forward. One of the biggest drivers in that is going to come up, and it's actually we are sort of putting our heft behind that in a big way, is what we call is asynchronous communication or messaging. So if you think about digital interaction today, when you chat with someone, it's like very similar to talking to someone. That agent is there on the chat device and chatting with you. And of course, from the voice perspective, when you're talking to an agent on voice, it's one-on-one conversation, right? That agent cannot do anything else but talk to you at that point of time. So he's fully occupied with you, one-on-one single conversation, while on the chat, that agent can chat with 2 or 3 sort of customers simultaneously, which is called concurrency in chat, this thing, but still it's synchronous chat. What we see as a trend going forward is like texting between you and your friend. If the intents, like for example, when you text your friend, the friend is there, he'll respond back immediately. If he's not or she's not, he's going to come back, an hour later, 2 hours later, whatever that may be, right? And that's become the norm of communication in our personal life across the board. I mean, I would say like all communication or 95% of the communication happens through that medium. So as a consumer, I'm sort of shaped by that behavior in my communication with all of us. But when it comes to my communication with the enterprise, suddenly I'm sort of transformed to this either synchronous conversation on the call or on the chat. I see that changing phenomenally in the way of async communication, that same consumers will start interacting with brands also in similar way. For example, I just want to find out a return policy for retail. I don't need to be online. I don't need you to provide that in the next 30 seconds. If you can get back to me after 5 minutes, is fine with me, right? So it seems trivial from that perspective, but it has tremendous impact on the back-end contact centers, because then contact centers can actually schedule their agents in such a way that they can sort of, what we call industry parlance, flatten the curve of calls coming in. Because if this like customer calls, the way they come in, you can't really predict, right? I mean, suddenly they have 10 customers that call in the same time and only 5 agents, then you have to wait. But if all of them do it through async messaging, all of you can get a response and nobody feels that they're waiting at all. So it suddenly increases the capacity with the same agents to handle multitudes of in customer interactions compared to what they're handling. So I see that as a future of, in fact, communication between consumers and brands as a predominant channel. So that's one sort of in the digital channel. I see that happening, in fact, secondly, what they're doing, I don't know how much you've seen that. In fact, even Apple, through Apple Business Chat, or Google has Google Business Messaging, they're also promoting that in a heavy way, whereby when you, for example, search for a customer service number for, I'm just giving an example, Bank of America, and when you try to sort of call, in fact, Apple phone will give you a chat suggest. You'll say that instead of like calling a number, do you want to sort of message the business? And preferably, if you're not in a hurry, you are happy messaging the business and getting the response back a little bit later. So that's the second. So 98% we can think about Google, Android, and Apple control 98% of all devices. If they're promoting that, moving to messaging as a channel of choice, and consumers anywhere used to it, that's going to be a huge trend that we see in happening on that front. And on the voice side, I see, in fact, virtual voice personal assistants like Alexa or Google Home to also, in fact, become increasingly important for customer service as well. Right now, they're very limited in the capability because of security and privacy concerns and all that, but I think they will figure out a way to solve that. So I see that also taking a big sort of part in customers' interaction with the brands going forward compared to what they are. So 24 months, 36 months down the line, I see async messaging and virtual and voice personal assistants are the two predominant ways for consumers to interact with brands when they want something to get done. This is from the customer experience side. On the back end side, I'll let Satish sort of add to it as to what he sees happening, because he's got, obviously, he goes closer to the ground there than I am.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to quickly add something here, Zina and Sanjiva. Contact centers have been under tremendous pressure to perform. And so whether it's lost productivity or costs or, customer experience and agent experience, in all of these areas, automation is going to truly help transform that contact center. And that's where I think, in conjunction with partners like 24/7 AI, 24/7 AI provides that systems of engagement. And as the systems of engagement change, whether it is messaging or voice-enabled transactions, right, those are all going to continue to change. But the truth is, in conjunction with that, you still need more and more automation is what we're going to see going forward, truly help keep up with those changes and continue to transform customer experience. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So we are really working with the likes of 24/7 AI to provide a digital workforce for transforming contact centers, for today and beyond.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, well spoken and couldn't be more true. I think the relentless move towards a higher and higher self-service and automation, as I, in fact, talked about in the initial dialogue itself, is a trend that's going to, in fact, get even more and more, because, as I said, those three trends are all converging into the same point, that it's better for everyone involved in that ecosystem. So it's difficult to hazard a guess as to what that percentage would be, but yeah, it's going to go up and up towards more and more self-service for sure.
And last thing I'll say on that, Zina, is, in the end, it's all about business impact, right? With automation and partners like 24/7 AI, we are adding capacity to the contact center. We are assisting and empowering those human agents. We are truly improving those metrics like average handle time, average speed of answer, containment, and so on, and controlling costs and delivering superb customer experiences as we do that. And that's the magic, I think, with a partnership like this.
Magic. I love that word. And it does definitely sound like it would be a magical experience. And companies are already delivering this today with the examples that Sanjiva and Satish, you were able to talk through and provide. So I thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining me today on this episode. It's been very enlightening. I was chatting to Satish at one point, Sanjiva, while you were sharing a story, and I just chatted, wow, stuff is so so cool. And he chatted me back a smiley face. So I know that our audience really is walking on a different level of knowledge now around what's going on in contact centers and how virtual agents could assist them in revolutionizing, I'm going to use that word, what's going on, because that certainly sounds like what's going on.
Absolutely. That's great.
So I have a little fun thing that I do here at the end of my shows. I'm not sure if you've listened to any yet, but at the end of my show, I just like to have a fun question, throw it out there. I call it my Xena Zinger. And, usually my question is around if a digital worker were, something, what would they be? And I think your agent would be, your answer would be a virtual agent because that's obviously where digital workers find their way in your home. So, or in your world, I mean to say. So I think what I'll do is I'll kind of take advantage of where we are right now, all of us being work from home in the situation that we're in. And if a digital worker were a first responder, what role would they have in that first responder world?
When you say first responder, you mean from sort of
however you'd like to, we have a lot of different first responders out there responding to different things. You mentioned that when COVID hit, all of a sudden contact centers went from certain call volumes to unexpected call volumes. So I would imagine that, you could see those individuals responding even in the settings of your IVAs as first responders to a large extent. But if a let's give it a personification. If a digital worker were a first responder the way we typically think of one, a nurse, a doctor, a fireman, a triage agent, what have you, what type of first responder would they be?
So they will be a very intelligent first responder. What I mean by that is that the beauty of a system like this is when you try to approach or call or contact a first responder, typically you've done something in today's digital world, right? You've gone to the digital, property in some fashion, website, their mobile applications or whoever they're calling, and done something to find out yourself, first of all, how you can help yourself. And if you can, then when you call in, that's the experience that most of us have. We call in. When what we call in our parlance is when you call a brand, your customer support doesn't start from that moment onwards. It has started before because you've done something before that, and you couldn't get something done. That's when you sort of reach that help line, so to speak, in some fashion. And when you do that today, if in a human responder, it doesn't have any clue about what that effort that you've done in the past on those digital properties, so to speak. And IVA bot or our bot, actually, the way we sort of implement it, in fact, has access to that effort that you've done on digital properties and is able to, in fact, in some fashion, predict, I would say, the intent of your call. So my hope is, like the example that I gave with the airlines, is that the first responder is able to sort of, in fact, pretty much drill down to what your issue is in moments compared to what it would take for a human responder, so to speak. So I would envision that as almost like a cyborg, which is basically super smart and is able to, in fact, sort of read your mind, so to speak. It's like I always give example when you go and search on, if you're logged into Gmail, and you use all the time, and you go into and you go to drive to a restaurant for dinner and you forgot the address, and you start putting the restaurant's name in the Google Maps, right? You put only 2 or 3 letters, and by like 90% of the time it gets the restaurant name right? It knows what you're looking for. And I'm sort of imagining the same thing in first responder from a bot perspective as well.
Yes, and I love that. And it might be a little cyborg. It maybe to some sounds a big brother too, but the idea that, that first responder already knows what I need when it arrives is the best feeling that someone in need could have.
Absolutely.
So I've really enjoyed the program today. I kind of want to keep talking, but I'm also conscious of how long I've kept you today and our audience. But perhaps I could have you back on the show sometime again, and we can talk more about virtual agents and what's going on in contact centers. I look forward to seeing some of the predictions that you've made come to be.
It's been a pleasure as well from my side. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a great discussions. I really enjoyed myself.
Thank you, Satish. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Zina. Thanks. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sanjiva.
Everyone.
Thank you both. Thanks, Satish. Bye.
Bye. Signing off. Bye.
You've been listening to Generation Digital Workforce. If you want to hear more about RPA, AI, and other cognitive technologies that are shaping the future of work, join us next time as we continue to go deeper on these topics with industry innovators and experts. To make sure you never miss a future episode, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. And if you've liked what you heard today, please leave us a review. It's one of the best ways to help more people find valuable content. For show notes and more info, visit us at blueprism.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.